Hey, what's going on, everybody? In today's tips and tricks video, I'm gonna go over just some general maintenance on this pack wheel. And for a majority of it, it's gonna be the same on the standard pack wheel as it will be this electric pack wheel. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So to start, I'm gonna go ahead and begin with the electric pack wheel specific maintenance things we wanna touch on. So if you have a standard pack wheel, go ahead and skip ahead a few minutes because the majority of these first things I'm gonna talk about are going to be about the electric pack wheel only. First thing is gonna be that chain maintenance. So I'm gonna go ahead and spin this around. So after some wear and tear of the season, we wanna double check our chain tension and make sure we still have that inch of play right here. And that looks pretty good to me. Again, we do have a dedicated adjusting your chain tension video on our tips and tricks playlist, but as a quick reminder, all I'll have to do is just loosen up this front and rear bolt here where this electric motor is, and I just need to move it forward or backward depending on if I need to loosen it or tighten it. But again, double check that other tips and tricks video on adjusting your chain tension if you need to for whatever reason. Next thing for maintenance about our chain is going to be cleaning it and lubing it up. So with the chain, first things first, we want to make sure there's not a lot of dirt and grime on our chain. If we've been using this a lot and we've got a lot of grime and buildup on that chain, we want to make sure we use some kind of brush to clean that off. And the spray that we recommend using on your chain is going to be the Finish Line One Step Cleaner and Lube. That one works really well because it's a wax base, so that's going to help with, after you've cleaned it and you've lubed it up, that's going to help prevent more dirt and grime from soaking onto that chain and kind of building up over time. So that is one that we use at the shop, and we always recommend it to new customers. All right, and just for demonstration purposes, this isn't the Finish Line brand. This is just a generic spray, so I'm not actually gonna use it, but I'll show you how to apply it on your chain. So with your pack wheel, what we wanna do is flip that battery on, and with your right hand, you wanna go ahead and reach down and grab the throttle. With your left hand, you have this little window right here, and what we wanna do is spray this lubricant on the inside of this chain. So the inside portion here, that's where we want to spray it on top of those rollers. So again, with our right hand, we can grab that throttle and just give it a little bit of power. And as it's spinning, we're going to be spraying the top side of that chain. I'm going to keep spraying until I get all the way back around, until that master link is where I started. And that's how we recommend applying that cleaner and lube to your chain. After you've cleaned and lubricated your chain, go ahead and take a rag and just wipe down any excess spray that you've gotten on the frame, which is gonna happen. And that's pretty much all the maintenance we're gonna do on the chain. You wanna be cleaning and applying that lubricant at least once a year, or after you've had your pack wheel in wet conditions or nasty conditions, definitely recommend cleaning it and lubing it back up after you get back to camp or wherever you're at, after your hunt's done or whatever you're doing with it, just to keep that chain healthy and maintained over time. Next up for maintenance on our pack wheel, we're gonna check all the cables and connections just to make sure on the outside of these cables, nothing's torn, we don't have any exposed wires. The connections themselves, we can pull out of the bag, make sure all of our connections are still good, plugs are still good, everything looks intact, we don't have any water damage or anything like that. All that looks good. Over here where the motor's at, we can check this connection, make sure that connection's still good, still tight, everything's sealed up. Nothing's exposed or damaged. Everything looks good there. So after we've checked all of our connections and stuff like that, we can go ahead and make sure our bag is nice and tight. Everything's secured again, and on to the next. And just as a quick reminder on the battery, we want to be keeping this in a dry room temperature location at about 75% charge. That's an important one to keep in mind because this is a lithium battery. So to check that, we can just turn our battery on with the indicator here up at the top. We want to make sure that we have 3 out of the 4 LEDs lit up on this. If you're below that, charge your battery up a little bit, check it every so often until you get 3 out of the 4 LEDs. If your battery is charged at 100%, you're probably still okay to keep it stored for a long duration of time, but just keep in mind, ideally we want to keep it at the 75 range if we're going to store it for a long duration of time. And again, just as another reminder, we have more in-depth videos on our tips and tricks playlist, so go ahead and check those ones out as well if you need a little more clarification when it comes to a certain subject on your pack wheel. And the very last thing I want to touch on when it comes to the pack wheel maintenance is going to be checking just all your fasteners, all your nuts and bolts. That will be the same on the standard pack wheel as well. But for this one specifically, what we want to check is this little nut in here. I'll go ahead and get a close-up of that here on screen right now. We do apply Loctite on that nut when we are assembling these. However, we do get the rare occasion where customers will come loose. So just double check that, make sure that nut inside there is still nice and tight. And for the rest of the nuts and bolts and stuff like that, we're kind of just doing a general check. Just anything you see, making sure everything's still nice and tight. I'm not missing any nuts. I still got all my bolts and everything. Everything looks good. I mean, pretty basic stuff, just making sure everything's still nice and tight. I'm not missing any nuts or bolts. Next thing we can check is our brakes. For the brake levers, we just want to make sure those levers are still nice and tight. The cable's still good. This little lock ring right here is still nice and tight. Mine was actually loose, so hey, there you go. Check that, that's nice and tight again. Cable still looks good. Giving this a spin, double checking the spacing and everything still looks good. If we need to adjust that disc brake, again, we do have another dedicated tips and tricks video on adjusting your brakes. So give that a watch if you need to adjust your disc. But everything looks good. Everything feels good. And that's pretty much it for the brakes. Another thing that's good to check is our emergency kit. I mean, sometimes we don't really think about it. If we took a tool out and we used it for something and we put it somewhere else and we forgot to put it back in our emergency kit, let's say down the road and I'm in the back country, I need a certain tool and I'm like, oh crap, I used that for this that one time and I left it here. Well, now you're SOL. So just kind of checking all your tools, everything's still in your emergency kit. Another thing to keep in mind is make sure your glue is still good inside your tire repair kit. That's an important one. And that's pretty much it for that. And another thing you might want to check is your game and gear bags. This one I have my gear bag. Again, I just kind of want to go over just generally making sure everything's good, the stitching's good, the buckles are still good, rings are still good, I don't have any holes I need to fix or repair. Everything looks clean. There's obviously some stuff in here, but your game bags especially, don't forget if you used your game bags, wash them, clean them, do whatever you need to get everything clean and prepped for next season. And the last thing I want to touch on really quick is your tire and the air in your tire. Just kind of generally go over your tire, make sure you don't have any thorns that are sitting in there or anything that you may have missed that might over time cause a slow air leak. So that's all I've got for this one, guys. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We would truly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to our channel. That will help us out a lot. Just as a quick reminder, we have our tips and tricks playlist. So go ahead and check that out. That goes a lot more in depth with a lot of different aspects and topics. And it's a lot of good information. So thank you guys for checking out this video. And as always, good luck in all your hunts.